when we say audit proof, it doesn't mean that you won't get audited. Okay.
Exactly. Audit
Because
ready was
yeah, so we don't that's the thing. And people will say, well, I want my tax return done, but I don't want to get audited. Like, listen, I could give you 100% with, extra bonus points tax return, and you could still get audited. We don't make that decision. The IRS does.
Hey, everybody. This is your girl, Hope Brown, the tax-minded bookkeeper, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Beyond the Receipts. We are the podcast for small business owners that covers everything from a financial perspective to really help you guys be compliant. That could be anything from just helping you make sure that your data is organized correctly to helping you with the tax compliance and everything in between. I am super excited today to come. Unless you've been living under a rock, you should know at this point we are in the tax season. It's early February. The IRS officially opened as of January 27th to start accepting returns. So at this stage, we probably have listeners who are trying to close their books. Should have done it in January, but that's all right. Going through your receipts, going through all of your paperwork, getting it ready for your tax preparer. Probably, dare I say, there are some of you who are going to wing this thing yourself with tax preparation. All right, I'm going to say a little prayer for you, but it's all right. But where we want to go today is, yes, we're in the tax season, but more importantly today, I want to talk about a topic that is like a bad letter. When you think about tax preparation, and especially as a business owner and even as an individual, and that word is audit. All right. Now, this is something that happens not immediately once you file that tax return. All right. It could happen 6 months from now. It could happen a year from now. It could happen 2 or 3 years from now. I'll be honest with you, starting about a year ago up until even now, I'm meeting a lot of business owners, especially who are getting those audit letters. But let's talk today a little bit about what's causing that. And, worst case scenario, if you get audited, what you should and what you shouldn't do with that. All right. So in order to make sure that I'm bringing you guys correct information or just maximizing the tips that we can share, I'm teaming up today, and I have a very special guest, and I'm super hyped about bringing today to the show LuSundra Everett. So she is known as the Home Biz Tax Lady. She's the owner of Everett Tax Solutions and ETS Tax Relief, where she specializes in small business tax preparation, planning, and specifically tax problem resolution. LuSundra is an enroll agent. She has been since 2017. She's deeply involved in the tax community. All right, y'all. Even before I started my firm, I would watch her videos when I worked in corporate, just to be able to get, from an educational perspective, more information about the tax law or the topic that was being covered. She's heavily involved in the National Tax Practice Institute Fellow. She's a past president of the Virginia Society of Enroll Agents. So doing a lot of great things in the tax community. But even beyond her client work, she is super passionate about educating tax professionals through her ETS Tax Institute and also her clients. And when she's not diving into tax law, she's a devoted wife and mom of 2. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to bring LuSundra to the stage. All right. Hey, LuSundra.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So I read that bio. Anything you want to add to that bio?
I'm just a tax geek, y'all. That's it.
You'd be modest, guys. This woman is a wealth of knowledge today. And we're going to take advantage of that because, like I was saying, LuSundra, I'm meeting a lot of business owners who have either gotten audits letters in the last couple of months, last couple of years. It just seems like it's been going up and up. So before we dive in, though, and talk about the audit part, I mentioned during your bio, you are an enroll agent. Can you share with us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. Enrolled agents are America's tax experts. We are licensed by the Department of Treasury, and then we have the authority to represent taxpayers before the IRS and states. So one of my good friends said, she describes it as if an attorney and a CPA had a baby, then an enrolled agent would be it. So in front of the IRS, we have the same authority as a CPA, as an attorney. We can't go to court with you. There's a special exam that you have to pass for that.
Mhm.
However, we can represent you in dealing with most of the tax problems that you're going to have with the IRS and the state.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So she's being super modest, guys, because it's a three-part exam that you have to study for and
Yeah.
pass when you are earning your EA designation. It is no joke. Okay. So for her to be this involved with it and have accomplished it, and this is any EA that you meet, like, trust me, they have put some blood, sweat, and tears into that situation. So,
Believe me. So what's funny is, you know how on Facebook they have your anniversary things. So every year all of those anniversary videos pop up.
yeah.
So here shortly, my part 3 where I passed, and I'm on Facebook like, "Oh my god, I passed you guys." Yes, I was like snot boogers ugly crying on there like, "Oh my god, oh my god." Yeah. So
Serious. It's that serious. It's
it
that
was that serious. Part
yes,
2 broke a sister down. Part 3, I was done. I was like, "Yes."
yes, yes. So definitely puts you in an ideal position to be able to understand tax law and help people get it right. I know too, like what was your affinity with the small business owner? Because that's where I see you more connected. Tell us a little bit about that connection for you.
So, first of all, I come from the home business industry. Like, there really isn't too much that I haven't done. That is pretty much the running joke in my family. But when I started in tax, I realized that it was the small business owner that was getting into tax trouble. And they were getting into trouble not because they were trying to do some nefarious stuff, they just didn't know. And the people that were telling them stuff wasn't telling them the right things. And I knew that because I had heard those same things,
Yes.
right? And I remember when I was, having my side business and whatnot, and I had this tax professional. He was an enrolled agent. I didn't know what it was at the time, but he was a mean dude though. And so I was telling him I was getting in this. He was like, "Oh my God, you don't know what you're doing." And I was like, "Okay, are you not going to tell me what I'm doing wrong or what?" So, while yes, he was right, I did not know what I was doing. As I found out later, I was like, he could have been a little more helpful.
Yeah.
Just a
That's
smidge, right? And
yeah.
so that's why I do what I do because, someone telling you that you don't know what you're doing, well, that's not helpful. You already know you don't
Yep.
know what you're doing.
y-
But not telling you how to correct things, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you're sick."
Yeah.
Okay,
What
great.
medicine do I take? What do I do to get better?
What do I do to get better, right? That's why I do what I do, and I'm about that education because somebody was just brash enough to tell me, "You just don't know what you're doing," but didn't do anything to help me.
Yes, 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 100%. And I hear that from a lot of clients. So we're doing bookkeeping from a tax perspective during the year. And that's the number one thing I hear from clients is like people tell us to do things, but they don't tell us why to do them.
Mhm.
Or it's already a little uncomfortable letting people behind the wall of your finances. You can be nice about it to people. That's
Yeah,
our culture in our company anyway. I mean, I need people to feel comfortable to come to me. We can talk about it because that's the only way we're going to be able to change it and make it right if it's wrong. Absolutely.
absolutely. I had a 12-year-old once come up to me, and that's when I knew I nailed it. She
Yeah.
said, "I know you. You're the tax lady that helps taxes not stuck." I was like, "Baby, you got that. Remember that when you start working though, okay?"
12
Just,
year old pants. Oh my gosh. She
She's
was
like,
like,
"You help taxes not suck." Like, "You got it." So if a
yeah.
12-year-old can get it,
Yeah.
baby, I have nailed it.
Yes, 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 yes. So that energy, that positive attitude that you have, the morals, the values, how do you deal with clients who are coming to you? Well, before I get to that question, let me just ask you, what are you seeing on the front lines? And I'm going to say the front lines. I don't do resolution. I don't do tax representation. We do preparation. And then we call the experts like you. If I get a client that's just on that next level, I'm calling you, first of all, sending them to you. But what are you seeing like on the front lines for these audits that are coming, these letters and things like that now?
A lot of it is preventable, and
Mm,
sometimes you get these letters and then you say to yourself, "Is it red wine, white wine or brown liquor day because some of these letters are like, we need to go find brown liquor because even if I don't drink, I think I might start
Yeah.
for some of these letters because a lot of it is preventable. And that's what's sad because the fact is that you've done the work. You know what to do here. You know, you're stayed in your lane. I have. But there are a lot of people who are out here who are preparing taxes just for the bag. They don't know what they're doing. And so their whole marketing and how they're presenting to you is, oh, I'm going to get you all this money back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the question is, are you getting it back the right way? Because by the time you've gotten that letter, baby, you have spent that money
Mm-hmm.
and 9 times out of 10, it was not the right way. And I will
Mm-hmm.
give you a prime example. I have a client that just randomly left me. I was like, "Okay, clients leave, do what you do. Okay, great,
Mm-hmm.
it happens." But then they came back the following year. Okay, I need to see that return because if I've done your taxes before. I know you've got carryover. I know you've got this and that. So I need to see that return.
I
And
already know. I
and
already
as soon as I saw that return, I
know.
was like, "Whoop, brown liquor."
We doing it on alcohol levels
But
in college.
see, and brown liquor
Yes.
because
Yes.
I knew just from the
Yes.
result of the return that it was wrong,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
hadn't even
Yes.
opened the return yet. Then once I opened the return, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, 2 shots." Uh, so,
Yep.
but because what that preparer had done was so egregiously wrong, I
Yeah.
mean, you could be in the 1st grade and see it's wrong, and
Yeah.
so but it was done in order to get the client a tax refund that they really were not
Which
entitled to.
and we say pay now or pay later. Hefty later. It's just not worth it. It's
It's
not worth it.
not.
I mean, for a situation like that, will you advise the client to amend or will you demand the client to amend? You know?
So, we can only tell them what the consequences are. We can tell
Mhm.
them what's wrong. We can tell
Mhm.
them what the consequences are and let them make this decision from there. Now,
Yeah.
some people may not amend, but I am very clear. If the IRS comes to you before you get to the IRS, a lot of your options close down.
Yes. 100%.
So it's better to amend a problematic return than to just wait and see if the IRS comes, because if they come, it's gonna be like with fire, brimstone, penalties and interest and,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
extra compounding interest smackdown.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So for what you're seeing though, so people are doing their own returns. It could be a preparer error. Are there some errors that you see that are more common? So okay, purposely misstating information in the return.
Yeah.
I've seen it too. I,
Yeah.
and it's in disbelief I've seen it. But are you seeing like other just common patterns of things that are happening that are getting pulled for audits nowadays?
Well, that's really it. Okay, so let me tell y'all what they're doing in the streets, okay?
Yeah.
What
Give
we're
us
doing in the
it.
streets. So you might have someone who may have a job, six-figure earner that
Mhm.
winds up owing. And typically, if you're single and making six, guess what? You still probably gonna have to write a check. Okay. Now, what these tax preparers are doing are adding these Schedule C businesses that don't exist and filing them at a loss. So it reduces the taxable income and reduces the tax you owe and possibly gets you a refund.
Yeah.
But the way that they're filing these returns is absolutely bananas. You're gonna, $10 in revenue and $30,000 in expenses. And
Mhm.
the IRS is going, "How?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. It
Like,
it doesn't make
how?"
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the math is not mathing here. So those are the types of things that trigger an audit. And where the taxpayer needs to pay attention,
Mhm.
it's getting the whole return. Because if you read at the top of the page, at the top of the form, it says exactly what it is. So if you see something about a business and you know you didn't have one,
Exactly.
then you need to say, "Hey, this isn't right."
So I wanna stop you there to say and remind people that ultimately you are responsible as a taxpayer. If we're filing the taxes on your behalf, we prepared them. We actually have to get a form which verifies that you have reviewed the return and you're accepting responsibility for what is in the return. So I would definitely say if you're working with a preparer who's just preparing it and saying sign here, and they're not even giving you 5 minutes to walk through that return, you don't have to be an expert on it, but you need to know something about what you're signing, is what I would recommend for sure.
Absolutely, because you do sign under penalty of perjury, and perjury is a felony,
Yeah.
that everything in that return is true and correct. And
Yes.
you are absolutely right to say, "Oh, well, the tax person did it." The IRS is like, "Yeah, that's great, but you signed it. If you knew it was wrong, why did you sign it?"
Yeah. And
So,
we're
yeah,
getting
it is your responsibility. Absolutely.
in our firm, like we're getting selective. It's just certain returns we're not doing anymore. If that's what you want, it's plenty of preparers who will do that for you.
Right.
But, we're signing that return just like you're signing that return.
Yes,
And after a certain point, patterns are going to be noticed, even with what we are doing as preparers. And I don't want to jeopardize the standing of my other clients who are doing the right thing that I'm preparing to
absolutely.
return.
Because listen, if you have a tax person, a tax preparer who is doing a whole bunch of fraudulent stuff, even if it's not on yours,
Yeah,
right? But they're doing it on a lot of other people's, then everybody comes under scrutiny.
it's a good
Everybody
domino
that
effect.
that was serviced by that preparer comes
Yep.
under scrutiny. Mhm.
Yeah. So let's move on to the people who are trying to do it right. Let's just say maybe they don't have a bookkeeper, but they have some kind of accounting that they're doing during the year. They're trying to do record keeping, that type of thing, but they want to know what they should be doing right. You have any tips for people from a bookkeeping standpoint, which would, in case of audit, be able to substantiate the deductions they're taking, expenses they're taking? Because they won't listen to me, Sandra. Like they don't listen to me. I'm trying to tell them during the year, if you're paying a contractor, for example, you need to get an invoice from that contractor. You need to have a W-9, just as an example, but they are not
Yeah,
listening to me.
keep thy receipts. That's LuSundra Everett 1 and 1, okay?
Yes.
Keep thy receipts. And listen, receipts are what substantiate the expenses, okay? So we talk about and I don't care if it's for a nickel, it's your nickel, right?
Mm,
But when you get audited, the IRS wants to see receipts. They don't want to see your bank statements. That the bank statements are cute, but that's not going to detail what you actually purchased, right?
yeah.
So by not having a receipt, then you give them the latitude to disallow that expense, right? So having all receipts. And listen, this is easy because people like, I don't want to keep all this paper. First of all, I don't care.
Electronic nowadays.
You can scan the receipts, you can email receipts. There are so many things that you can do to reduce paper, but I don't care. Put it in an envelope. Okay. The fact is, it is a lot easier to get rid of paper that you don't need than produce paper that you do.
Yeah.
So save those receipts. Okay. That's number one. Number two, absolutely with business owners, when you're dealing with contractors, you need to have an invoice. And when I say an invoice, I mean a proper invoice. There is a difference. It's not just, hey, let's scratch this on a napkin. Here's what you owe me. No, a proper invoice has certain things. It has the business that is issuing the invoice, it has who is going to, the date of service, what the service was, how much was the service, and when the payment is due.
Yes. Yes. Tell
A
them. Tell
That
them.
is what a proper invoice is, and I have seen it in tax court where they have this person said, "Okay, here's this invoice," and the court was like, "This is not a proper invoice. We have no idea what this person did for you." Disallowed.
It could be your buddy. You're just giving like $500 to. Like you need to have the paper trail, is
You
what she's
need to
saying.
have the paper trail, absolutely, and listen, and, like, speaking of buddies, do not do business with anybody that don't know how to do business,
Mm,
plain and simple, because if you ask for a W-9 and you got to get these W-9s up front, because if you wait until tax time, people get selective amnesia real quick,
we
okay?
can't do that. Yeah.
So that's a part of the hiring process is getting the W-9 up front, okay? If they don't want to give you a W-9, then you need to go find someone else.
Yeah. And guys, and what we'll do in the show notes, a lot of people are like, what's a W-9? A W-9 is a tax document that you get, like LuSundra's saying, upfront. It's going to have information for them to fill out on what their entity type is, their address, their contact information, all those different things. I'll put a link to the IRS version of it in the show notes. So no excuses, download it, give it to all your contractors. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I would just say too, with the auditing things that are happening now, well, how do you feel about I'm hearing things, I'm hearing people tell me, because I have friends who work for the IRS, that they are using a lot of AI technology now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do
That was part of the upgrade. As
Mhm,
much as people, okay, so listen, as much as people was complaining about this money that the IRS got,
mhm,
the IRS needs that money.
yeah,
They have been underfunded for decades, and a
yeah,
lot of their stuff they're even still doing by hand because it was underfunded.
mhm,
So they did do some improvements. They are using a lot more AI, and basically they're looking at, you know, let me say this, the small business self-employed division of the government, they tell you what they're gonna do. Like,
mhm,
they will put out a plan and said, "Oh, hey, over the next 3 to 5 years, these are the things that we're going to be looking at."
yep,
So, it's no mystery of what the government is looking at. No
no,
mystery at
there's
all,
not,
right?
there's not,
As preparers, we're like, "Okay, we know that the government is going to be looking at this particular thing, so we're gonna make sure this is right. We wanna make sure it's all right, but we know that we need this right here to be
yep,
super on point."
yep,
Okay? And so with that, they're able to set those parameters
mhm,
on the using AI on the computers and basically say that, "Hey, if you see these things, pull
yeah.
that."
Yeah, guys. And think about how we're using AI. I mean, we're using AI in the firm. Every business owner I know right now either is or should be using some form of AI to simplify what they're doing and make it a more efficient process.
Mhm.
So, if there is an algorithm that the IRS has programmed into some type of process internally, whereas before manually, if they were doing it, it might have been, and I'm just pulling numbers to give you perspective, 100 returns, reviewed under a minute, manually. They could probably do 1,000 within 5 minutes now, so you just
Exactly.
gotta look at that. You gotta look at that and really think about, I don't like to gamble, I like to be
Yeah.
risk averse. So yeah, you could file some crazy stuff and it could never get flagged. There is a chance of that. But I tend to want to audit proof like the bookkeeping we're doing during the year and, audit proof as much as possible, definitely the tax return.
Right.
So, you just don't want to play games with this is what I mean, running a
Yeah.
business is hard enough.
And to be clear, when we say audit proof, it doesn't mean that you won't get audited, okay?
Exactly. Audit
Because
ready was
yeah,
probably
so
the
we don't that's the thing, and people will say, "Well, I want my tax return done, but I don't wanna get audited." Like, listen, I could give you 100% with,
best.
extra bonus points tax return, and you could still get audited. We don't make that decision. The IRS does. And sometimes when they're doing oh gosh, I forgot what they call it. Well, they're basically just pulling audits, really just to pull information
Yes.
from specific industries. They'll do that. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. They're just essentially gathering information. So there's absolutely nothing that we can say or do to tell you that you will never get audited.
Yeah.
However, what I tell my clients is we want to prepare the return as if you knew the IRS was showing up tomorrow
Yes.
because you don't know when tomorrow will come. So if you do what I say, and keep these, make sure you have the receipts and like you can scan all this stuff. And this is literally what I do at the
Mhm.
end of my tax year. Once I prepare my own tax return, we
Mhm.
scan all that in, scan the receipts. It's all in an external drive. So if
Mhm.
the IRS says, "Hey, I need to see X," yes, tax year 2023
Yeah.
receipts. Here you go. Have a nice day.
Yeah, easy peasy. Just
Yeah,
wrap it up in a nice little package, put it aside in case you ever need it.
yeah,
You're good to go. So,
absolutely.
yeah. So I think that I wanna ask you one last question about, again, when I'm thinking of audits, I think of entity types too.
Mhm.
So I hear, for example, I mean, I know sole proprietors, single member LLCs. I call us, we're kind of low hanging fruit because
Yeah.
they know there's a lot of errors that will go into that. But I don't know if you guys handle audits for S Corp owners or other types of returns. But
Yeah.
what are you seeing the errors in that area? I mean, I already know what I see.
So
When reasonable
with
salary, things like that. But what are you?
Yeah, so with S corps and the Small Business Self-Employed Administration, they told us they're looking for reasonable comp and basis. That's why we got the new Form 7203,
Yeah.
because people were not properly reporting their basis. And what that does, it impacts your taxable income. And
Mhm.
so they told us, "Hey, we're gonna be looking at basis."
Yes.
So,
Right.
as we're preparing, people that are experienced in S corps anyway, were already doing that. It
Mhm.
was, sometimes you get people, they get the S corp, they put in their income and expenses, and voila, you're done. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're not. So that's two of the biggest things is a reasonable compensation, as
Okay.
well as tracking basis to making sure that you are being taxed properly. You're not taking any losses that you're not entitled to, or if you're taking distribution in excess of basis, that's being taxed properly.
Yep.
So those are the things with the S corps. Partnerships, they're looking at the distribution of property. We got a new form for
Mm,
that, Form 7217, I think,
okay.
right? So if it's a form,
Mhm.
ding ding.
You're paying attention
They're
to it.
looking at it,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
So those are the things I see, and then even with C
Mhm.
corps are a little bit more involved. They're
Mhm.
looking where in S corps, they're looking for that reasonable salary. With
Mhm.
C corps, they're looking for excess.
Mhm.
Like,
Yes. Like what? Well,
how much you paying? Like,
well,
what?
do me a favor, right? A lot of S corps I meet, they don't even know they're S corp. Well, they know they're a S corp, but somebody down the line recommended they become an S corp. They don't know anything about the
Yeah.
administrative responsibilities of being. When you say reasonable salary, can you just define for the audience what that means? Because again, they ain't listening to me, right?
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
So, reasonable comp, in easy terms, the IRS says if you look for a job doing what you do, how much would you expect to earn?
Mhm.
Or if you were going to replace yourself in your business with someone with the same similar experience as you, how much would you expect to pay? So that is the number. I hear a lot of things. I hear, a 60-40 split, salary and distributions, 50-50. No, it is
Yeah.
reasonable salary. So that reasonable compensation. So you have to do a reasonable comp study. You
Mhm.
have to actually, do some homework to come up with what your reasonable
Right.
salary is. Because if you don't,
Yep.
on audit, they can reclassify your distributions as what should have been payroll, then you gotta pay all the penalties and
Mhm.
interest and the things for them back payroll taxes that you should have paid upfront.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it can be very detrimental. And even on the flip side of that,
Mhm.
you know, and having conversations, especially with people who are getting, closer to retirement,
Mhm.
more seasoned peeps that are getting into these S corps, you got to think about Social Security. Like people are lowballing these salaries, paying themselves $20,000, and then they get to draw on Social Security. It's like, wait a minute, where's
Mhm.
my Social Security? Well, because you didn't, you
They don't
put
have enough
yourself.
points. I got you. I got you. You
Yeah.
never can stop working because you're still trying to get your points, for Social Security to
Ex
retire.
exactly, and so with my side hustle peeps and,
Mhm.
my sole props and single member LLCs and everybody's telling you to live this tax-free life, okay,
Pay now or
tax-free
pay later is what I'm
you
saying. So please.
right? Because and listen, I know here, Social Security is a big discussion right now, and this talk is not about Social Security, but you
Yep.
need to understand, like, Social Security is underfunded,
Yes.
okay? It was never meant to be the whole plan.
Yeah.
But what I have found, and I have had people come back to me trying to file 10 years worth of taxes because they were living under the table and now they don't have any Social Security benefits. So they're trying to pay these taxes to be able to get these funds.
That's a sad story, and
So
more and more
you
I'm seeing people
so
like that.
that
Um,
don't believe that. I mean, the tax-free life, it sound cute, but baby, the execution, that is not where it
yeah.
is at.
And guys, I wanna add so when she's talking about taking that reasonable salary part, that is going and signing up, doing payroll, W-2
Yep.
payroll, where
Mhm.
you're getting just like if you were working for a traditional employer, you're working for your company, they're holding, like, that 15.3%, whatever that is for, you know, self-employment taxes plus federal plus state if it's applicable for where you live at. So
Mhm.
it's not just the distribution part, which a lot of people I'm running into people, they don't understand that part, that W-2 or reasonable salary needs to be W-2 payroll. That
Right.
definitely
Yes. They
yeah.
wanna 1099 themselves, like, that's not
Yeah.
how it works. That's
Yeah.
not the rules.
Yeah, and with the reasonable comp analysis, like we do those in a firm too, guys.
Mhm.
And that's the whole process of sitting down and defining in a defensible way with the IRS. What are you doing? All of your different roles that you're doing in your business. I know you're the owner, you're the CEO, but let's look at you're probably doing marketing, especially if you're a small business.
Yeah.
You're wearing multiple hats, but we can actually look at that and break it down by what you're doing, the amount of time you're spending, per day,
Yeah.
per week, et cetera, and come up with that salary that can be defensible with the IRS. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
definitely good stuff. All right. So I guess as we are closing out, any last tips or whatever, and then tell us how we can get in contact with you too, because I know that there are people out there, they haven't opened that letter yet. LaSalle. Because they're afraid, but yeah,
Okay. So first of all, open the letters,
Thank
okay?
I mean, I'm
Not
serious.
opening the letters does not mean you didn't receive it, okay? Open the letters. And
Yeah.
here's why I say that. Because a lot of times, I understand the fear. Like, this is what I do. I get letters from my clients, and I promise I stand at the mailbox and open the letter and see what it is. I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's what this is. We can proceed now. We can breathe." So I
Yeah.
definitely understand the fear. But when you get the letter, you need to open it. If you don't understand, you need to get help. End of story,
Yeah.
okay? When you don't respond, you force the IRS to enforce the law. The IRS is just the police. Congress wrote the laws, the IRS has to enforce them. So that's their job, okay? So if you don't like the IRS, tell your congressman, all right? Um, but one of the biggest things that I will tell business owners is you got to pay estimates because that's how most people wind up in trouble to begin with is
Yes.
not paying estimates and having this big tax bill at the end. But regardless of that, you still file on time. Then you get help with getting a payment plan or what have you. Okay. But don't think the problem is just going to go away. It is not. You
Yeah.
have to address the problem. So if you get a letter, if the letter says we need more information about X, that
Mhm.
is a mail audit. That is what
Mhm.
that means. Now, if it's big enough, will they come to your house? Yes, they will. But that's what that is. And so then if you don't know what to do, you don't understand, reach out to a professional, reach out to an enrolled agent.
Mhm.
You can find me at ETS Tax Relief. That is the problem solving arm of my business.
Mhm.
And we are definitely here to help you. And there is no shame.
Mhm.
Okay. There's like
Absolutely not.
absolutely not. Now, I'm gonna pick fun at you because you gotta laugh at least once, right? Like, "Oh my gosh," because it's already scary enough, and I get
Yeah.
that. But we are definitely here to help and really help to make that process a lot smoother and also make sure you're getting the best outcome possible. The IRS is working for them. When you call the IRS yourself, they're trying to get as much money as possible.
Mhm.
That's their job.
Yes. Need
Our
some
job is to
you
represent you, the taxpayer.
yeah, and I'll just piggyback on that advice about the estimated taxes. The main reason why I see people not doing that estimated tax payment is because they're not doing the bookkeeping and record keeping. And sometimes they truly don't know what they should be paying. But even if it is you talking to your tax professional about just meeting the minimum threshold of what would be due to avoid penalties based on your last year taxes, talk to your professional about that. All right. The safe harbor, what is it? it's a safe harbor method, right?
It's a whole calculus
Yeah,
formula. Like,
yeah,
my gosh, did it
yeah,
have to be so complicated? But
yeah.
yeah.
Like coupons or something. But
Yeah.
most importantly, do your bookkeeping during the year and meet with somebody, even if it's going to Etsy, getting a spreadsheet where you can put your business income and expenses on it. It's going to be better than just having that bank account. We call it bank account bookkeeping. It really doesn't tell you the bottom line of what your net income is
That's
for
right.
that business. And that's what you need when we're talking about these estimates, to know what percentage you may want to just set aside in a separate bank account. Even if you don't send it in, set it aside in a tax savings
Yeah.
account so that January comes, the tax season comes, it's not such a shocker like, oh my God, I got to pay $20,000 in taxes, but you have it set aside. That would be my advice on that part.
Absolutely. I advise I do that. And tell Michael I do that whenever once a week I will take take my gross, I set aside 30% and put it in a savings account.
All right.
And if you save too much, guess what? Then you have choices. When you
Love
don't
it.
save enough, then you got to make decisions.
Good.
I like choices.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Me too. All right. So you gave your contact information, but just closing out, like any one last piece of advice, just breathe. I know you said, I mean, that's what I tell people. Just breathe. Don't
I
ignore
would
the
say
others. Say the
say
estimated taxes.
1, absolutely just breathe. And
Yeah.
2, don't be afraid of the numbers. A lot of people
Mhm,
don't do bookkeeping because they're afraid of the numbers.
mhm,
The numbers are a reflection of your activity. They are not a reflection of you as a person. So you can look at a number. If you don't like it, then you can do something to change it. But you got to know your numbers because that is the pictorial representation of your business. And that allows you to make better decisions. It helps you pay estimates. All it helps you not overspend, right? A lot of us will see, oh, we got money, let's go spend it. No. So absolutely, like I'm the tax person telling you you need a bookkeeper
mhm.
in order to need me.
Yeah. And I've heard you say in interviews before, by the time they get to you, it's after December 31st. It's very little we can do from a tax perspective after December 31st.
Yep,
Maybe some retirement
absolutely.
accounts and things like that. But she's right. During the year, looking at those numbers, making adjustments is needed, taking action is needed. That's the ideal time of where we want to be, everybody. I want to see you guys
Absolutely.
win 100%.
Yep.
So, all right. All right, Miss Everett, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for having me.
these. Oh my gosh, you just saved somebody's life. Probably saved multiple business owner lives out there. Yes, you did. All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us as we talked to LuSundra and just got all those wonderful tips and information about having audit ready books and even tips before we even get pulled for an audit to hopefully prevent it. All right. Super important in 2025 and beyond. We definitely got to implement these kind of practices in our business when it comes to tax preparation. So if you found any of these tips helpful in helping you prepare for the tax season and beyond, I'm going to invite you to post your notes, your comments, your questions, and we definitely will get to them one by one. All right. This is Hope Brown, the tax minded bookkeeper, signing off. And until the next episode, I want to encourage you to keep thinking beyond the receipts in your business. All right. Peace. So, I hope this message resonated with you on some level as an entrepreneur, whether you're just getting started or maybe you've been in the game for a while. Definitely don't forget to rate and review the podcast. And of course, you're welcome to connect with us on social media at The Tax Minded Bookkeeper and share your thoughts, comments on the episode. So that's it for now. And until we meet again, you got this entrepreneur thing. And don't forget to operate your business beyond the receipts.